Well, everybody, welcome to the media show on the Pod TV network, where we experienced our high watermark about 2.3, 2.4 million views last year on the network. And we do want to thank our viewers from not just the United States, but around the world. And with around the world, we're going to bring in one of the regulars here on the Pod TV network. Hailing from somewhere in Australia down under is Shaquille Latimer, who's currently trading the markets right now, trailing and trading. And then from Los Angeles, California, where the Golden Globes originated from the other day, which none of us were invited to, we'll bring in Rick Rosner. None of us got invited to the Golden Globes or whatever.
I've never been. I've been to the Emmys a couple times. I got to see famous people walk into the bathroom, which was exciting.
I was thrilled to see people walk into the bathroom. And then from the head of the Pod TV network here in the Raleigh-Durham area, we have Kim Calhoun. And then a new person who has a new job as an Uber driver, and we just found out, is the voice of Carolina, Jatovi McDuffie. And then, of course, we have the person who has more experience in broadcasting than all of us combined is Mark Lee. I think he's on his 105th year right now in broadcasting from Marquette University. And then out in the left coast, but not the west coast, is Jim Eade. So yes, we're here to discuss the media and the ever-evolving media. We do notice recently that happened today that our friend, what's his name, Elon Musk was trying to take over John Donaldson, Mr. Beast. I thought that was pretty interesting. Mr. Beast is in Greenville, North Carolina. For those people who don't know Mr. Beast, by the way, is a YouTube sensation, but not a sensation on the Pod TV network. He's actually in Greenville, North Carolina. Has about 200 million people following him. And I think Elon's trying to get him to go on to Twitter, and his answer is no, because Twitter doesn't pay.
Twitter doesn't exist anymore. It's called X now. So Twitter is no longer more. It's now X and all along those lines. But I did have a question because I said I was going to mention it to Jatovi as we were transitioning from one show to another. But there are some influencers that get influenced because of their ability to play sports and all along those lines. And one of those influencers has an interview that apparently is getting multiple millions of interviews because apparently Shannon Sharpe has got this great show and a great podcast, but he interviewed Cat Williams, who was basically calling out the African-American performers that have come out in dresses like Tyler Perry and others as well. So he was basically saying that it's all an Illuminati conspiracy. So I was just wondering if anybody was following this, because apparently it was trending big time and everything when this interview came out Wednesday. And I know that Jatovi, like me, follows these stories, but Shannon Sharpe has said that he's got 26 million. Apparently the record is an interview, ironically, with Elon Musk, I believe, and everything. And that was like in the neighborhood of 50 million views that particular episode got. And that the second place is like roughly around 30, 34, something like that. And he is pretty confident that he can get to the 34 because he's averaging like 3 to 5 million per day on people watching this interview that he did and everything. But they are saying that he may actually catch the biggest interview of all, which apparently was an interview that was done. I forgot the source or which interview it was, but it was somebody that interviewed Elon Musk, and they got something like 50 million views on that particular show. So Jatovi, did you watch the interview, and any thoughts about this notion of Cat Williams and him calling out our African-American performers because apparently they got too many people that are doing the thing and wearing dresses?
Just to touch on what Nick was just talking about Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast turned him down, and it's true that Twitter, I'll never call it X, that's just a dumb name. Twitter does not pay. And Mr. Beast pointed out that it costs about $100,000 to make each one of his videos, and he would never make that money up on actually Twitter, because Twitter does not pay. If you want your social media or something to fail, hire Elon Musk, because that's the way it's going with his track record right now. He lost tons of money on Twitter right now. But to go to Cat Williams, yes, Cat Williams said some things in that interview that were true about joke stealing and some of the other things, but also he didn't have all the information in the background. So he was a little salty because he and Cedric the Entertainer, Steve Harvey, and that whole group always have they have some bad blood between them. However, Cat Williams is a phenomenal performer. I'm not a big Cat Williams fan. I wasn't big on his stand-up in the first place. However, he blew up after Friday after next, I think it was, or Friday number 2. But again, he said a bunch of craziness. Once he went down the Illuminati thing, you lost me because that's just dumb. It's one of them crazy conspiracies.
Funny how those people, especially Jacoby, who lectures the rest of us about using correct pronouns and not dead naming people in the trans community, wants to dead name X and call it Twitter. Fascinating about that. In relation to conspiracy theories, I quite like listening to David Icke, right? I think that probably 95% of what he says is complete nonsense, but I like it because I think it's entertaining. It's like listening to the flat earthers, right? I want to hear what they've got to say because it's amusing, right? So I don't want government or tech or anybody else to tell me that I can't access this material. Let me go and listen to it. I want to hear it because I think it's funny. Like a lot of conspiracy theories that are out there, right? With the vaccine, the conspiracy theory was if you got the vaccine, one of the conspiracy theories I heard, if you got the vaccine, it was going to change your DNA. Toby, just let me finish. I know I had a crack at you. You'll have a chance. Let me finish.
Okay.
If you take the vaccine, it's going to change your DNA, and there's going to be a patent on your DNA, and you will no longer own your body. You're going to be like this transhuman kind of thing. Now, I thought it was ridiculous, but I want to hear that stuff because it's fascinating. It's funny. What's the legal repercussions if that really was true? Like, it's just shit to do while you're bored, while you're locked up at home because you can't leave the house. So I think there's so much attention paid to this misinformation, and there's a lack of respect for the intelligence of the populace. Let us hear it all. Most of us are going to find this shit funny. Leave us alone, media. We're okay without you.
One problem.
Without you protecting us.
Oh, I was just going to retort real quick. Shaq, you obviously didn't watch the interview because he really didn't go into anything about the Illuminati. The only thing he said was that the Illuminati brought him to a party with him and Ludacris, and there was a choice between the two. So it wasn't really a whole super conspiracy thing, but it was just the way he worded it. It had nothing to do with anything that you talked about. And
well, you mentioned conspiracy, and as I said about dead naming.
We were talking about the Cat Williams interview. I just said that he brought up the Illuminati conspiracy, and obviously you didn't see the show, or the interview. And then when I said about X, that I will not call it that for umpteen years I've been calling it Twitter, and I'm not going to switch over right now to a ridiculous name. So again, we've had our time. Let Rick and Jim go.
Right, so one problem with the current media ecosystem is that it lets people talk too much. Each of us here is on our third hour of talking. And, somebody like Cat Williams, if he wanted to, he could go on 10 podcasts and just talk all day. And nobody pays any, for every, say, 3 smart things I say one stupid thing. And, if anybody actually paid attention to me, they would take each stupid thing and go, look at this stupid stuff.
Okay, great. By the way, my problem with Cat Williams is I don't know who he is. So you'll have to have
another thought, and I'll make to find the interview and let y'all hear.
Who he is? What does he do? Is he a football
player? He's a stand-up comedian. He's a well-known stand-up.
Cat Williams is a well-known. He's a big-time comedian who blew up in the coming off of Friday in the African American community or the minority community. He's a huge cult hero in a sense because he's a big-time comedian and blew up off of Friday and one of the big-time movies that everybody loves. And he's similar into the Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock vein of comedy.
Toby, get him on the show so we can introduce the people on Pod TV.
We get millions of views. We do it.
Well, then get them. Call them up. Dude.
I just said the Shannon Sharp interview.
So the funny thing is,
but I have on deck on the economic show the chairman of the Federal Reserve, who actually I've known for 50 years because he used to come to my house all the time. His name's Tom Barkin. He's the chairman of the Federal Reserve in Richmond, Virginia. So I know people like that. I don't know this Cat Williams guy. So call him up. Give me his number. I'll call him up and get him on the show.
We probably wouldn't be able to get Cat Williams, but we could get some of the individuals that he called out that are now doing responses to his interviews that also get thousands and 100,000s of views.
Okay, so you're telling me that Cat Williams is going to duck us? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that Cat Williams would not see us as a viable option.
No, he's ducking.
Because he on the Shannon Sharp show, or on that Shannon Sharp interview, he legitimately said, "Hey, I will not vote on anybody else besides you or Larry King."
Hey, in Cat Williams' defense, Nick just found out about Taylor Swift. So
great point. Great point.
No, but I wanted to go back to
got?
what's the media role in this, because I believe I'm the libertarian type too when it comes to, like you can say whatever you want, as long as it's not doing harm. Like you can't, incite an insurrection, for example, but, you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. There are, but you can say your opinions and they shouldn't be shut down. It should be voted on by the number of listeners and viewers you get and that sort of thing. But the media can play a role in saying fact from fiction, truth from lies. And I think that's the media's job. It was really interesting to me to see independent review of which was the best fact-based reporting. And the New York Times came out number 1. The Wall Street Journal came out number 2. And they're politically very different. But, that you can, even regardless of your politics, be accurate, be factual. And so this is like the kind of thing that the media's role is to separate the wheat from the chaff. Yeah, this guy's nuts and he's popular. Okay, that's fine. But make sure that people know he's not telling you the truth. Otherwise, you'll have somebody going on and telling us that the shooting in Connecticut that killed all those children and teachers, that was just made up. Or that was caused by this or that.
What are the arguments he makes?
And you need somebody to tell them that's not true.
Oh, just like Jim, what are the arguments?
Like obviously, what Alex Jones did, if that's what you're referring to, was deplorable. But this is not a failure of the media or of the system because he had this massive judgment against him. But who should be the arbiter of what's the truth and what's not? We know that there's always going to be opinion. I would prefer to read opinions on both sides and formulate my own opinion. What I don't really particularly like when if I can give you an example of a story that came up about 20 years ago in Australia. I remember watching the report, and these guys came in and they ripped off these charity boxes where people put coins and low denomination notes, and they ripped off this money. And the media reported it as being a cowardly attack, and these cowards that did all of this. Yeah, thank you. I don't need you to tell me they're cowards.
I know, I agree.
Give me the information. I can form my own opinion. Now, if you then want to give an opinion piece about how horrible these people are, that's fine.
Yeah,
but when we say, and I say it as well, although for different reasons, because I tend to be a little bit more on the right than you are, although I think a lot of the things we actually are on the same side. But you tend to be a bit more left, I tend to be a bit more right. So I have a slightly different perspective on things. But then I'm going to sit there and say the same thing. Like, I would like there to be truth in media, but we're not going to get it. There's always going to be a slant. There's going to always be a slant on Fox News. There's always going to be a slant on NBC and ABC and CNN, right? The New York Journal, the New York Times, versus New York Post. There's going to be slants there. We have to accept that and trust that people can try to decipher it for themselves rather than insisting that media be absolutely impartial at all times. Because if that is what we're going to insist, who is going to judge that? Who is going to be the arbiter of that? And that's where I fear that we end up with things like the misinformation.
People vote with their feet.
No, I think
you're an Inquirer, people will still buy the Inquirer, but nobody believes it. And if you do believe it, you're an idiot. So,
Sure, but let the idiots be idiots, Jim. Let the idiots be idiots. Who cares?
Yeah, that's what I think too. So let's
I think you answered your own question within your own talk is who should be the arbiter of truth? That's the facts themselves should be the arbiter of the truth because facts are facts. You're not going to change. The sun is out right now over North Carolina. I can't turn around and say, well, that's really just a giant light bulb in the sky, which is what
Trump won the election in 2020. It's not a fact.
Yeah. I mean, there are facts.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
There are some things that you can look at and just go, yeah, the sun's up over North Carolina.
No. But Shaq, I think what you're doing.
There are other things. Let me finish. Let me just finish my response to you. There are other things that I think people can look at the same facts and draw different conclusions. And I don't think it's healthy for one group of people to say, because you drew a different conclusion from the same evidence, you are some sort of tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, and we are the arbiters of truth. I have many opinions that don't necessarily agree with, say, Rick's opinion. I don't think that Rick is a conspiracy theorist, and I expect that Rick doesn't think that I am one. We just may come to different conclusions.
I think what you are stating, honestly, is an argument over opinion and not actual fact. For example, when they say most scientists agree, 90% of the scientists agree that 90 plus scientists agree that man is part of the reason for temperatures rising or the high global warming and stuff like that. But when you come back and say, well, I look at this data and, it's not in my opinion. That's an opinion argument. That's not really what the facts say. The facts point towards a different way. And then on top of it, one of the things that I saw online, which also is one of the best analogies, because what your argument sounds like is somebody put out a meme where there's a person standing at the top of a 6 and the person standing at the bottom of the 6. And the people look at that number and say, well, hey, to me, that's a 9. To you, that's a 6. Truthfully, the artist actually created it one way. So whichever way the artist actually created it is the actual fact of what that actual number is. It's not a 9. I mean, you can draw your own conclusion, but there is a true fact to that equation that is there. And that is where, again, the facts lie in the truth, or the truth lies in the facts of what it is. If we say that the majority of mass shootings are created or are done by white males, it's not a fact. I mean, it's not an opinion. It's a fact. It's one of those things, looking at the data and drawing your opinion that, oh, well, all white men are killers. Yeah, that's an opinion that should be disputed and should be pushed back on. That's where we get down the road of a rabbit hole that we get into.
Jacoby, one of the questions that I would ask, and that's what I was going to bring up, I actually bring up the tape and everything in a minute, is this notion, and that's where the Illuminati argument came in, because there are people that brought it up. I'm sure they'll bring it up even with the Jeff Epstein case and everything, is to whether these folks literally, and I'm just going to use a religious term, sold their soul to the devil and everything, because that's part of the argument that Kat was making, was that literally there was some sort of deal made that they got their power because they basically sold their soul to the devil and all along that bargain.
I mean, that's just one of those arguments and Rick honestly is here in Hollywood and can attest to that. I mean, there are deals that some people take that other people don't take, and we don't know what those deals are. So when we get jealous of those deals, yeah, we're going to throw in extra things.
There's a difference here. When people use, like, climate change is real, and you can say, well, climate change has always been real. Yeah, but man has had an effect on it. That's really factually not disputed anymore. But there are many opinions, and there's a lot of opinions that say there's no climate change, and a lot of people are offended by that, and it leads to a distrust in science. Now, one of the breakdowns in our society now is a distrust in all of our institutions. The Supreme Court is not trusted. The Congress is not trusted. Mail delivery is not trusted. But, when you start not trusting science, then those are the people that are dedicating their lives to providing facts. And when we don't trust those facts anymore, it doesn't matter what we tell people, what we show them the statistics. It doesn't matter. They don't trust them. And that's what's happened in our society, a breakdown of trust. How do we repair that? I don't know. But I think it's about being honest and truthful. And the media has a role to play in that.
Some of that is intentional.
Rick has got the floor.
So it's come out that the oil companies have known about climate change for 40, 50 years, and they were paying people to sow dissent and confusion. They had their pet scientists who were willing to get out there and spread bullshit.
Yeah. Speaking of that and everything, Shaquille, it's your turn. But before you get to your
Cigarettes
turn,
too.
yeah, go ahead, and then I'll play a little bit of this of the video and everything. But go ahead, Shaquille.
Well, just a couple of things there. Firstly, I don't think it's fair to say that these things are not disputed in relation to climate change. There are disputes there. The problem is that,
there's a consensus, Shaq. Come on,
Jimmy. I'm the president of the International Green Alliance, and I'm a advisor to the Climate Change Forum.
I know your background, Shaq.
Okay,
But you're not a scientist.
There's all right. Okay, guys, I won't say anything. You guys go for it. All right.
No, but
there's
it's a
what you had to
consensus.
say, Shaquille. But I'm waiting
All
for
right.
Shaquille.
No, there's out of shape. It's okay.
No, I'm going to play the video, and then hopefully Shaquille will come back and make his comments. But this is the actual response that Ludacris had.
So there was a crossroads where we were both invited to an Illuminati thing, and it had to be one or the other of us, and decisions had to be made. So it was both of us. We were equal. One of us had to cut off all their hair and couldn't do the sideburn thing no more with the points. And the next person, they said, was going to get $200 million because they were going to pay him $10 million a movie to do 20 movies. And that's how the conversation happened. One of those persons turned out to be Ludacris, and the other person turned out to be Cat Williams. Now, one person ended up with a light-skinned, ugly-faced wife that's never done it. Remember I told you that if I say that, it applied to 7 people? Yes. It's part of what they give you. Okay? I didn't get it. I'm not mad about it.
How much money they give? 200.
Sir, Fast and Furious is on what number right
10.
now?
10.
Come on, man.
200 million. I might need to get me one of them old women look the same.
That's what they all end up saying at the end of the day. Kevin told you he wasn't going to wear no dress until they offered him the dress, and then he put it on. And what did he say after he wore it? I made my own decision. Duh. But you didn't make it before they brought it up, did you? It's okay.
Holy shit, man. Cat Williams eating up the entire industry right now. Listen, I don't know if anybody's thought about it before, but I do not want to be enemies with the likes of Cat Williams.
Whatever's heavy on my heart is always on my mind. Like Snoop's cannabis shredder, I'm always on my grind. They throwing shade cause niggas could never take my shine. I bring my watch collection on my jet, let me take my time. Like fine wine, I'm aging like Benjamin. Top 5, I'm worth mentioning. Bring me rappers, I'm lynching them. See the pendulum swing, Jesus with diamond thorns. Ludacris, swaddled in Gucci linens when I was born. Never been Illuminati, only Illuminati. And I only left with bitches when coming from any party. Now I'm married with kids, the evolution of life. Never been a clout chaser, never say shit for likes. R.I.P. John Singleton. You never have to flex when you earn every one of your Fast and Furious checks. Afro with the sideburns. Yeah, that's my signature. Addictions on the rise. Comedians check your temperature.
Oh, that was so gross. That was so gross. What was that?
Some of the response from Ludacris and everything, and that was the actual conversation and all along those lines. So now you hear some of the debate back and forth. And now Nick knows who Cat Williams is.
Oh, thank you.
That's where I thought, again, when he started going down this Illuminati train, don't get me wrong. There's some of the things that I found earlier that he said that I don't think were quite true. And even that, when he was, like I said, he lost me in the Illuminati because, one, you're saying, okay, he even later said, well, actually, in that interview, in that part, he said, well, how many movies are on? And he's getting paid 200 million for 10 million per movie, and this is the deal he signed. Plus, he got come on, man, you don't know all that. And there is no secret organization that probably pulled you through. And if it was a secret organization, then why are you even saying that there's a secret organization doing this? Because it's a secret for a reason, supposedly. Now you're letting the cat out of the bag. It's just, that I thought was hilarious.
Well, it was amusing, but I didn't know what to make of it, to be honest with you. And whatever they're doing back and forth, I'm sure somebody more plugged in can form an opinion, but I can't.
Yeah.
And
well, when he, oh, sorry.
No, I'm just saying that I really have no comments on that. It was over my head.
Gotcha. Shaquille, any thoughts around that? I played the video and everything.
So there's a famous saying by a great Hollywood screenwriter, William Goldman, and it's nobody knows anything. And that Goldman's saying is that nobody in entertainment has any idea what's going to happen next, what's going to be a hit, who's going to become famous. It's all just a crazy scramble of people, trying to find the next big thing. And if it works once, we'll try it 2-3 more times.
Yeah.
But there are no guarantees. Like, Tom Cruise for a while was the only star who could open a movie and guarantee a profit. Even that's not true anymore.
But along those same lines, you say nobody pays attention, and I just made that video and everything. But there was another controversy that came out over the weekend and everything else, and that was that infamous list that came out with Epstein, and apparently 2 presidents were actually listed on it and everything. And this is having to do with child pornography and the way that we treat children and everything. And I know that some cultures, a child bride is not unheard of or unknown and everything, but I was just wondering y'all's thoughts around that, because both Clinton and Trump's name were on that list. There were some other celebrities that were on that list as well, but that is definitely something that has been a media discussion lately, is the infamous list and who's on it and who's not on it, and whether it even needs to pay attention to the political framework, because like I said, there is 2 past presidents that are on that list.
So Jeffrey Epstein was a scammer and a bad guy in a lot of ways. And like, he was a social climber, and he and a financial advisor, and he made a ton of money from knowing a bunch of famous people. And sorry, my wife just came in with the dogs. And just because you took the plane to Epstein Island doesn't mean that you were banging 17-year-old girls. I mean, it doesn't look good, but it's ridiculous to say that anybody who, he gave people ride on the jets because that got him influence.
Yeah, the guy was, if you weren't part of the Epstein circle, you got to wonder about yourself, because he was trying to get everybody. And a guy like Bill Clinton would have been interested in the types of parties that Epstein threw, because there were influencers there. There were votes there. Trump was there, but even Trump said, "Hey, Epstein likes girls that are pretty young." So even Trump was like a little alarmed about some of the things that Epstein was doing, but they didn't have all this knowledge of that came to light later. And so it's part of the media that's guilt by association that we have to be aware of. We can't fall for that kind of trap.
Well, one of our founders put out that they said that Epstein used a lot of people, and they do think that they all knew what he was offering, but it did not mean that they used it. So they were saying that they would judge it on how often they showed up with him, and definitely was saying that remember that Bill Clinton does not have sex and everything, because that's definitely that whole joke around what he did with Monica Lewinsky and all along those lines. And he did, and they did say that he did go after a young lady in his office, but did not have sex. And like I said, that was the reference to Monica.
There was a case where a girl who was 13 at the time said she was raped by both Trump and Epstein.
Yeah.
And there were depositions, and then there was intimidation, and she withdrew the charges. But it seems somewhat credible.
Yeah, well, one of the other panels.
It seems credible. The charges weren't made out. The evidence wasn't there for the charges to be made out. This is a problem. You can't just tar people with the same brush.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm saying somewhat credible. I mean, it wasn't complete.
Okay. But
it wasn't 100% there, and so it went away.
But every allegation is somewhat credible, if it's not borne out in a court of law and the evidence, isn't proven, I don't think people should be punished for it. Now, if I can go back to what I was going to say about the climate change issue,
yes.
The problem with the climate change issue is that the media has purported that there are certain things which are just facts. But there is a lot of disagreement within the scientific community about what is the cause and what the solutions should be. And what we've seen happen in the green energy industry is we have seen lobbyists in, for example, the solar panel industry, which is an industry I'm involved in. I have a solar panel company. We've seen lobbyists that represent certain industries that take over that argument and put forward ideas for how to solve this that in some cases will work really well, but in other cases won't. And this is where the argument's been hijacked. One of the biggest places where I feel that the climate change argument has been hijacked is when they will suggest solutions that will reduce carbons, but will actually have a really bad environmental impact. And I've spoken to people on the climate change side that says it doesn't matter if we hurt the environment. What matters is reducing carbon because of the potential for reducing climate change. Climate change is the only thing that matters. And so what you end up seeing is people that care about the environment. These are not right-wing extremists. People that care about the environment that say, hey, if you do this thing, you're going to kill the fish or the birds or the this or the that. Or you're going to cause an enormous amount of environmental damage to that area. And they get shouted down, and the media jumps on the side of the climate change activists and passes things off as facts. And
we can always cherry pick problems like that.
One very clear example of this is the use of biofuels in the United States. Now, this, in theory, sounds amazing. Cut down trees, burn them because it's renewable. Yeah, but you're cutting down old forests.
Yeah.
You're cutting down forests which are hundreds of years old. That doesn't work very well. And so that's why I would say when people try to pass things off as, well, this is just a fact and there's no dispute, that's not the issue at hand. The issue at hand is not whether scientists believe that climate change exists or that it has been caused partially or wholly by humans. The question is, what can we do to mitigate it? If we do everything that we're suggesting, will that actually mitigate it? Or do we need to focus on what is going to be the most environmentally and economically viable options?
I'm totally with you, Shaquille. I'm totally with you. Guys in the Senate holding up a snowball denying climate change.
But that's something I think that we're not seeing. We're instead seeing this issue become so politicized. You've got for example, you've got Vancouver General Hospital. And that's a hospital I have an enormous amount of respect for because I've got an extremely important, valuable personal and family connection to that hospital. Okay, whose doctors recently, in the last few years, diagnosed people with climate change. So the treatment that they had to go through was to hope and pray that climate change would revert. This is just politics going crazy, and it's
Shaq,
Shaq, who diagnosed somebody with the?
We're talking
about. Hold on a second. I got to ask a question to Shaquille. Did you say that they were diagnosed with climate change?
That's right. Somebody went to the Vancouver General Hospital, and the doctors diagnosed their illness as being climate change.
I need a source on that one. That sounds like an Inquirer thing.
Whatever.
This
is something that I'm talking about where
we can always
there is any kind of disagreement.
There's a consensus around climate change. But what you just like you did with the other arguments before, you're kind of trying to conflate multiple things into one to try and justify you not believing whatever around climate change or you disputing the climate change. Let me finish. And then, so I'm just asking for a source on your diagnosis of climate change, because honestly, that sounds very far-fetched that some hospital would diagnose somebody with climate change.
You know what you guys have just done? You've just proven my point.
I'm asking for a source.
I have not said that I don't believe in climate change. I did not say that I was supporting anything that wasn't something that would help with this issue. What I said was there are times when scientists will disagree with each other on causes and potential solutions. And what we have found,
there's a consensus.
Look, I'm not gonna argue.
Hold on a second. Phil's making his point.
I can't be bothered, guys. Have a good show. I
Well,
can't.
you could.
You don't want to give me.
You gotta get into the back and forth here. You can't dominate.
We all here agree. So what we agree on
Jim,
is
if
that
I get shushed, let other people speak.
I didn't shush you. I said that I was actually thinking it was your turn.
Dominate, Shaq. We got to get a word in edgewise.
so we all agree, including Shaq, that human activities are changing the climate. And then what we're arguing about is the solutions and the political stances around potential solutions. Now, I saw a mainstream article, I don't have a link or a source for it, that some group of analysts had looked at, have claimed that 5 to 10% of the deaths worldwide last year, that climate change was a contributing factor. And, the argument is that you put an old person under climate stress and whatever else is wrong with them, it's going to exacerbate.
Of course, that's obvious.
Yeah. It's a similar thing with COVID. How COVID exacerbated issues with heart issues, diabetes, so on and so forth. So I can understand that, but the only thing I was asking about is somebody getting diagnosed with climate change. I've never heard that, and I would love to read more about that. So I mean, if we can, I mean,
no,
and in terms of a consensus,
that he knew and everything. I think he said Vancouver, Canada, and everything. So it sounds like it was a case of somebody that was maybe, and it might be what we're saying. It could have been even put as a factor at everything as part of the diagnosis. But he was saying that, and I didn't see the paper. He hasn't sent it to me. But it sounded like he was saying that somebody was diagnosed, and climate change was what the diagnosis was and everything. But
and he brings up a point that in a lot of ways, electric vehicles have the potential to be environmentally disastrous because what you have to. So, and in California, we got rid of plastic grocery bags that you get for free at the. And it turns out somebody did an analysis, and I don't know if it's entirely accurate, but then people started carrying their own cotton bags. And it turns out that the environmental cost of making a reusable cotton bag is higher than the environmental cost of the plastic bags. So,
I agree with you on that, but I think the humans are disastrous to our climate control.
But
we are not being conscious and considerate about what is going on, and we don't look at the consequences of any of the decisions or factors when we put things into law, like the plastic bag. Do you know I reuse mine as trash bags, or I reuse them to carry things? So I really didn't need a cotton bag, and sometimes I throw them in my car and I reuse them to go into the grocery store with. I reuse my plastic bags, but lately I've been getting charged for plastic bags, and that's stupid. But I just want to say, that we're not looking at all of the support of, like when people kept accusing that we were just making up COVID for a lot of the deaths at the hospital. And that's not true, because, my husband died at the hospital and they didn't put COVID on his thing. And he was there during COVID, and they could have easily taken credit for COVID on that one, but they didn't. But the ICU was full of COVID patients, not heart patients, not anything else. So before you open your mouth with a non-fact out there of saying this is what was all a make-up lie, if you don't have the facts in your hand, I guess I brought this up on a radio show one day. I said, you know what, where's the facts for that? I want to see the doctor's reports that would support this, because I don't know any doctor out there. Personally, I don't know any, and I know a lot that would make up a lie like that on a death report just to compensate themselves for COVID. Okay, because they were still being compensated by insurance for the other things, unless it was a heart attack. And I want to tell you what, the insurance didn't want to pay for that. But I just want to say that stop. People need to stop. This is why media is getting a bad name. But you need to stop making this stuff up or repeating what you hear on media. That's another thing. Everyone has become a parrot to what you hear on the media. And we need to just start thinking about these things before you open your mouth. Like when someone sits there and says, over 300,000 illegal immigrants are in our country. And I go, well, who stood at the border and counted? And if they were standing at the border counting, how did they get in? You know, let's use some common sense. But the problem is nobody wants to use common sense because they just want to hear what they want to hear so that they can support being offended by something.
Well,
and
Trump is famous for saying,
today.
You know, people are saying, Trump is famous for saying, before he says a lie, he'll say, people are saying. And this is what we do. We'd say, I heard, somebody said, you know, and we don't focus on facts. We don't dig deep enough to get to accurate facts before we draw conclusions. And we can draw different conclusions, that's fine, but they should be based on the same facts.
Hey, Jim, and I saw your hand, Rick.
Person's statement in a news, because one time I listened to a news story on the radio and I ended up having to go back and just get a copy of it. But everything the guy said, you know, for like 2 hours was all bullshit, every bit of it. Mm-hmm. But at the very beginning, he did say, you know, this is all, you know, what if. But then when people listened 2 hours, they didn't hear what if.
They didn't hear the what if. But Kim, along the same lines and everything, because you alluded to it when I brought up Epstein and everything, there is sometimes a kind of a attacking of the victims. And I think you were alluding to that as well, because sometimes they will get into that whole notion of not believing the victim and also attacking the victim, even though they're the ones that have been victimized. And I know that you have had some inventions that have dealt with that and all along those lines. So I was wondering your thoughts around that, because I do think that there is this notion to attack the victims. We know it happens in the courtroom and it happens sometimes outside as well. But I just wanted your thoughts around that, because I do know that
people don't report things.
You are passionate.
The majority of the victims are females, we know, and female has no voice, as we know. And most of the time, females are shamed while the men are famed, just like the Duke lacrosse team, because I still think that they committed a lot of offenses and should have been punished, but they weren't. Instead, they punished the girl that, you know, stood up for maybe what her rights were, even though she was a prostitute. But yes, Rick, what is your opinion?
Well, common knowledge is that rape has always been a tough crime to report because the woman will be put on trial. And in the case of Epstein, powerful people with high-powered lawyers, you know, were there to intimidate the victims into backing down. And in the case of the 13-year-old girl who was allegedly raped by Trump and Epstein, you know, she was pressured into backing down. I don't know how much of her case held up or not, but you know, that's a common thing.
And they're shamed and they're put into positions that they will never have a life again. They you know, they were raped, and that's bad enough. That leaves enough PTSD in your brain. You're disrespected. You're stripped of your dignity, and the courts do not allow any justice for anything anyway. There is no justice in court. It's all about money. But, you know, I want to kind of compare some of this Epstein stuff to, has anyone ever seen the movie? You know, seeing how this is a media show, Molly's Game, right? Molly Bloom. She's a true story. And I, you know, God, you know, I don't know how she had the strength and courage to sit there and say, there's no way in the world I'm going to turn these people over. And later we find out, you know, a lot of those people are big time celebrities and things like that. And what happened was she didn't, but somebody else who actually had turned her in actually turned over a lot of the names later. But again, she was the one that was shamed, punished. Anytime that there's situations, it's the woman that gets shamed and punished. I mean, look at Martha Stewart. I'm sure a lot of men did the same.
No kidding. That's a good example.
They used her as the biggest example of don't ever do this. Well, here's what I say. If you're a woman, don't ever do anything. Just sit back and let the men wait on you. And then, cross your legs when they want something, or
honestly,
that's what
honestly, I was going to say one of the
way to go.
One of the greatest movies that talked about some stuff that women go through, and it doesn't give a full glimpse. And I wish it were actually taught in schools because hopefully it can help out men. Honestly, Barbie. Barbie spoke a lot about it.
Rick's had his hand up sometime. Rick, what is
I lost my point.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to say there's something going on in the chess world that's fascinating along these lines because, I was on a show with international titled women, and they were talking about their unwillingness to report sexual aggression from males in and around tournaments because they knew nothing would get done. And then they knew there would be a backlash against them. And we just had a prominent a woman, Grandmaster Jennifer Shahad, who just resigned from her place, and she was the greatest advocate for women in chess that we could have asked for. But she reported a male grandmaster for aggressive behavior, and he's since been banned. But she didn't feel like she was taken seriously, and there was actually a backlash against her, and there was a lot of controversy about this. So, I think the chess world is about 30, 40 years behind the times, but it's trying to catch up. So there's a lot of talk about how do we make it feel safe for a woman to walk into a chess tournament, because mostly it's males, and mostly it's males that haven't been socially trained, so they don't know how to deal.
That's everywhere.
There's another world that we can talk about, which is gaming, which is cutting edge, and there was Gamergate, which. Well, Jacoby should talk about that.
So in the gaming world,
went under hidden identities so that they would be taken serious in the gaming industry.
Sure.
Yes, that is exactly what happened, because what ends up happening is due to the anonymity of gaming, and that's a tough thing dealing with not only social media as well, but the anonymity dealing in gaming. Oh, watch out, gaming. We were walking by another little puppy. But yeah, in the gaming world, it's tremendously sad because yes, women have to go up under male pseudonyms or just fake names because they cannot be themselves, because men get upset. Men will hassle them. And due to the fact of the anonymity, you think about any stereotypical construction zone that a woman walks by and gets whistled and catcalled and everything else. It's a million times worse online. Hence the reason why there aren't that really many. Oddly enough, in gaming, 50% are women that are gaming. However, they're utilizing many of the games that are on the phone. There's a smaller percentage that do like first-person shooters and other online competitive games. However, there are different gamer groups that deal with that actually women tend to join because it's a safer community for them and they're not being attacked by men. It's just we have a problem as men. Our egos, our testosterone, something. We have a major problem due to the patriarchy that I guess we lived in. We have to get over and understand that women are our equals.
But when I pull a little research that I did last year called mirror reflective reciprocation. So I always start out by treating people with the same respect that I would like to have back. But then if they turn around and they treat me a certain way, I will mirror reflect that. And it was interesting to me how the men took a huge, huge issue with me coming back at them. And Jacoby, I don't stand down. If somebody says something to me, they're going to get it right back. And you've seen it. And I don't hold back. And I can get just as mean and nasty. And I don't like to, but it became this thing with me last year. Maybe it was part of my grief process. I don't know. But I didn't like myself at the end of the day. But what I did find out is the few people that left my life, good riddance, because I'm glad to know that you can't take what you give. If you can't, but it was a good experiment. And I learned a lot about the way some men, not all men, I'm not going to say all men were that way, but some men took a high offense to me treating them exactly the same way they treated me. Yes, Rick.
The anonymity of the online world acts against the socialization of many men. I was an incel long before that term existed. It's short for involuntary celibate. Somebody who wants to have a girlfriend can't get one. And incels can go in two directions. The way I went was like, I can't get a girlfriend. How do I improve myself and my social skills to the point where somebody might like me? That I think that's a positive way to go. The negative way to go is, somebody can't get a girlfriend and it's like, F women. Women suck. And to get really trolly and angry, and the anonymity of online means that those people can thrive. Plus, we got a cornucopia of porno. And so somebody could just be living their life at home and be angry and adding hate to the world and, not having to go out into the world and become a better person for it.
One of the things that I've learned, and because I used to be one of those people that would reflect hate back, and it didn't make me feel better. And I've learned now to look at those people and think and feel sorry for them. If this is the way they're behaving, my goodness, what kind of lives must they be living? There's certain biological imperatives that we have. There's certain social pressures that we have, but all on that, there can be people that are so miserable they take it out on others. And like I say, if you're waking up at 3 a.m. and twittering out all these hate messages, you can't be a happy person. So to be a happy person now, I try to, when someone says something that's offensive to me, rather than to, the Irish was, that's gloves off. Let's go at it. But the older me now says, gosh, that person must be having a terrible life if this is the way they behave. And to not treat them poorly, but to disassociate myself with them. Yeah. And if I can. And
sometimes I'll reach out because I think the same way. Maybe they're having a bad day, because that's my thing. Is just, so many people are depressed out there today, and maybe one kind word or and sometimes I would try that, but then I would just see that it's just going nowhere. I mean, I've had some weird things said to me, and I try to take it on the positive side, right? So, like something this one guy said to me, and I go, oh, well, I wonder what he really meant, and then I asked him, and he goes, no. What I meant is I wish I could do that so I could tell you how to vote. And I'm like, oh, no. It had nothing to do with being nice and kind to me and wanting to hang out with me. It had everything to do with telling me what to do. So, I've learned a lot that so many people out there, I don't know if it's what happened during COVID or, maybe a combination of COVID and social media, but a lot of people have just lost the ability to even communicate niceness anymore. They all just want to be so true. Hard and controlling. Well, not all. Okay, not all, but the few that I engaged with, and most of those are out of my life now. It was real funny how when I did reciprocate it, boy, cut. I'm like, wow, actually I feel better.
Jacoby had something he wanted to say, and then
you're spot on in terms of we tend to get in our own silos, and I'm just speaking in general terms, but we tend to get in our own silos and forget that everybody else has their own silo, and we never try and reach in and figure out what they're doing anymore, like you guys are talking about. And one of the things that I like to do, because when Jim, you brought up, when somebody says something offensive, for me, I want to learn. I want to be educated. And instead of, I don't care. I do, but I don't want to have somebody come at me, not only trying to speak to me in a derogatory way, but I want to learn about their culture in return. I want to learn about their history in return and use that as a way to build a bridge and not separate. because there are things like I don't care how back and forth Shaq gets with me, because he and I will go back and forth, to the nail. But I want to learn more about Australia. I want to learn more about his history. Why? Because I think that's a beautiful thing that he has there. And we tend to get into in our society, we tend to use hate, race, your sexual preference, what you are as a tool to drive a wedge between each other, rather than, hey, okay, what can I like to cook? What's the dish that I can learn from Australia that I could probably cook here that's not the stereotype shrimp on the Barbie? I want to learn something new. I want to be educated in that way. And that's something fun that I think that would be great, in society, speaking utopian wise, that'd be great. Hey, why can't we just champion each other's cultures? Like learning more from Kim's perspective of, the things that she sees as a woman, because I'm a man. I don't see that. As a Caucasian individual, I'm black. I don't see what she sees. I don't get those opportunities, because it's not saying that it's a negative. I'm saying it's a positive. I want to be educated in that light, but we begin to go down the path of, let me use that as a wedge to separate us because, I'm a man. It's a patriarchy. Rawr, rawr, rawr. I hate that. I just can't get into that.
So Elon Musk has turned Twitter into like just a garbage dump of trolls, including me. But when I'm looking at you can block people or mute them, but the factors I consider are if somebody's just spewing hateful stuff, I look at how many followers they have, and if they don't have many, I'm like, yeah, I can get rid of them safely. I'm not going to learn anything from them. But if somebody's spewing stuff and they're like Gunther Eagleman, who has, I don't know, maybe 250,000 followers, can't mute him, even though I hate what he's saying, because he's shaping the discussion.
Yep. And that's one of the things that we also have to realize. What you're talking about, Rick, is these individuals that are influencers, no matter, Nick started off the media post with, we had 2.3 million or whatever million followers. Technically, we are an influencer. There are millions of people that watch what we do. So how we speak should be able to uplift and teach people other ways, and being able to call out and be honest about if the consensus says, let's go with the consensus, because number one, us making the determination that our opinion is going to outweigh these. No, we're not educating anybody with that. We're not being true to society with that. If we're going to uplift society, let's be honest about it. The consensus said, so let's ride with that. Let's understand that, there are a few people here that say, well, I don't agree with global warming. Okay, well, what are your stats to back that up? I don't agree with climate change. Well, okay, let's talk about the statistics to back that up. Even though scientists say the climate change is as the consensus is, let's focus on that and not attack it. It's just, we're influencers within ourselves. So
and we're
I got to interject.
So go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, sorry, Kim. I just saw a message flash by that said Elon Musk was in favor of free speech. And this is total nonsense. I'm sorry you've been brainwashed that way. He allowed Trump to come back. Yes, he did. But he censored journalists. He censored people that don't agree with him. So, this freedom of speech thing, that's you're being fooled if you swallow that potion.
On top of that, don't forget,
all the time.
Anybody that gets punished.
Jim, don't forget, he canceled people's Tesla orders who said bad things about him or anything. So if he didn't agree with it,
fired people and that worked.
The
guy's not such a good egg.
Yeah,
So on Twitter, I got into I tweeted a nasty thing about this woman who said some stuff about, some damn thing. And then she said, well, careful, I don't sue you. And so I removed it. But she's been called one of the top 12 purveyors of COVID misinformation in America. But, you know, she's lively, she's attractive, she's well-spoken, and I'm considering inviting her on my show to gang up against me with Lance, and, you know, because it would be a really lively, yelly, like, fun show, but then I get bummed because then I'd be platforming somebody who's selling bullshit.
Yep.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Honestly, speaking of you know, looking beautiful and blah blah blah, when just recently, well, two things. Before getting off the Epstein thing, the bigger news actually in the Epstein thing. Well, not even the bigger, because Trump and Clinton were already there and people already knew about that. But the big thing was Aaron Rodgers saying the stuff about Jimmy Kimmel, and that caused a rift between the Pat whatever show and ESPN. So now
Jimmy Kimmel doesn't play.
Disney people.
Yeah. And so Pat McAfee is now putting out there that ESPN is sabotaging his show, which they're not, because Pat McAfee is the one who paid Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers went on saying that Jimmy Kimmel, he's going to pop champagne bottles because Jimmy Kimmel was on the Epstein list when that got released. So that was
the connection is Jimmy is friends with the celebrity chef Adam Perry Lang. Adam Perry Lang used to work for Epstein as his chef. And obviously you can be Epstein's chef without, you know, being part of the pedophile stuff.
Let's bring up that last comment that was just brought up by one of our viewers, because I noticed that it only flashed up for a few seconds. Let's bring that last comment back up.
No problem. I actually had it up a couple of times.
Now I'm just gonna respond to a couple of things that were said while I was off air. Pretty fascinating that you're going to say that you'd love to be educated by me, but then you turn to me educating you on Australia. I'm not a representative of Australia. Okay. In fact, I'm a pretty poor representative of Australia, given how much time I spend outside of this country. But what I find really amazing is when I try to talk about some of the issues that I have seen have been brought up at climate change events, where I have seen scientists disagree on certain issues and be shot down by media, you guys aren't interested in that kind of education. You guys aren't interested in anything that disagrees with your worldview. And to the point, you then accuse me.
Are we going to get into a woe is me, or are we going to discuss
that? You cannot come on there and
no, nobody said that. Shaq, you're coming back on to make a woe is me thing. Let's not do that.
Yeah,
let's have a discussion.
Let me finish. If you're going to attack me, if you're going to attack me, don't
just attack
me. Nobody attacked you. Nobody attacked you. Let's move on, Shaq. Let's have a conversation.
I have a conversation. Your mind.
It's about changing
Let
me finish. You guys then try to. I haven't been on for over a month.
Me and then say, "Let me finish."
You haven't been on for over a month. So let me just speak for a minute, okay? You guys then try to intimate that I don't believe in climate change.
Why is this a woe is me show?
Why would you say that?
Why are we doing a woe is Shaq? Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about one of the topics in the world. Let's talk about something in the news. Tell me about. I don't care about the woe is me stuff. I don't care about it. I don't care. I don't care.
The reason why we have comments like the comment that was just brought up is because
that Gretchen brought up. Yes, Gretchen brought up and called us Democrat hacks, Democrat political hacks. That's what she called us. So you're not questioning that. Let's not get into this back and forth of attacking each other. Let's have a legitimate discussion.
Where's the back and forth? It's just a fourth from you. You have attacked
Shaq, you get to talk all the time.
That multiple right-wing and center-right guests on our network have stopped.
Oh, dear Lord. Now we're back to a woe is me, and I am a horrible person because right-wing individuals dislike me. Okay, Shaq, you have the floor.
Hosted by
Jim, you have a good day. I want to have an actual legitimate discussion. I don't want to sit here and talk about the woe is me and hey, you're a horrible person because you won't let this Trump supporter attack you. Oh, I'm so sorry. You won't let this Trump supporter attack you. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump off so Shaq can feel comfortable.
I'll see you.
Rick, yeah, I'll see you, Jim. Have a good one, Rick. Oh, Rick, I gotta talk to you anyway because I gotta get you in contact with my sister. I want you guys to do some stuff together. Because she's out there in California with you.
Do you have my email? Rick Rosner at Hotmail, because I'm old.
Yeah, I got it. I'll shoot you an email.
Okay.
All right, Mark. I'll talk to you too. I'm gonna go and pick up one of my kids.
All right. Have a good.
Bye, Jacoby.
See you guys.
Rick, go ahead.
I have the craziest, most pessimistic point of view about climate change. And Jim and I had this discussion. I don't think any of the current remedies for climate change are going to do jack squack. I think what's going to happen is that eventually AI-powered entertainment will get so entertaining that humans will mostly quit reproducing, and the population will drop over the next 80 years, and that's what's going to save us from climate change.
So you don't believe that the current remedies to climate change are going to do very much? Nobody's reacted to that. I say that I have a problem with some of the remedies that are being touted by lobbyists in relation to what's going to fix climate change, and I get attacked.
That's not true.
I mean, this is the sort of thing that I'm talking about.
Fact, Shaq.
What we have is a media.
You changed the subject.
What we have is a media. Jim, my comments weren't even directed at you, so I don't know why you've got your back up.
But you're not speaking the truth, Shaq. You got to.
What am I not speaking the truth about? What am I not speaking the truth about?
Nobody attacked you about climate change solutions. No one attacked you about that. Stop saying it.
What did I say that wasn't factual?
That people attacked you because of your climate change solutions.
I didn't say anything about climate change.
No one attacked you.
When I was talking, I was talking about the media misrepresenting certain solutions versus others. And this is why there is the opinion in my opinion, on the political left, that there is some wide range consensus, and that those people that don't agree with that consensus are hard right-wing conservatives, or are people that are promoting oil.
You're conflating two different things.
What the problem is that the solutions for example, California are going to be different to the solutions in Alaska.
Totally agree.
Okay. So that was all the point that I was trying to make, but I didn't get a chance to say that. I wasn't directing my comments at you, Jim. I was directing it at Tovi.
I understand.
After I've gone off air to have somebody bring my name up and say, well, I just want to be educated. No. If you're not prepared to listen to opinions that you don't agree with from people that have political positions that you don't agree with, which is not you, Jim. You go out of your way to listen to other people's opinions. But for those people that come onto this network that aren't prepared to listen to differing opinions, to then say, well, I just want to be educated, I just want to have a conversation, or these things are just facts. This is not helpful. And this is exactly why you get the comments that we just had from a guest there who says, well, everyone here is a Democrat hack. I don't believe that everyone here is a Democrat hack. I think I've said many things to Rick about what I consider to be his bias. He's just sat back and sort of reflected on that, go, oh, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, I don't know. Right? If somebody says to me that that I have right-wing bias, that's fine. I can accept that. But what we have seen is an enormous exodus of regular guests on this network who sit center-right because of certain guests just continually mischaracterizing what they're saying and attacking them. And I don't think that that's healthy. And I don't think that that is conducive to us actually having conversations about things that might make a difference, or where we can come together and really drive change. And I think that that's detrimental to us.
Well, I agree with that. And in essence, we're on the same page. The problem I have is, like, we had a show on economics with David Walker, and he said some things that I didn't agree with, and we had a back and forth about it, and it was fine. He handled it pretty well, I thought. He didn't agree with me, and he just said, I don't agree. So, that's the way I think those types of discussions should be handled. Attacking people is just not correct in any circumstances. You attack their arguments, not the people. And,
but Jim, along those same lines, because I actually made a comment, after the show, but I thought that that's what we were doing on both the World Edition, which sometimes people on the network, including one of those people that Shaquille is referring to, that might be considered more conservative, call the food fight and everything. But I thought today's show was very diplomatic, and people were giving their opinions. We didn't always agree with everybody's opinions and everything, and I thought there was a civil discussion on the World Edition today, just like I thought it was a civil discussion on the economics.
It has been, Mark. It has been a civil discussion. But when you guys have all had a chance to talk about climate change, and then I go to respond to it, and then I'm told, well, just because you don't believe in climate change, to which I responded, I'm the president of the Green Alliance, the International Green Alliance. So of course I believe in this thing, right? James then said, well, I know your background, okay? And then I go on to say stuff and I get shouted down. Look, this is the problem. This is what I'm talking about. When people
you got to monitor yourself too, because you can dominate discussions.
I didn't. I want
to respond to that.
No, second, Shaquille.
You got to be more
I looked at the
how much
airtime
you
patiently waited. I
you waited patiently. You waited patiently.
Seconds of me speaking. Okay, and what I'm saying to you is, this actually wasn't a debate about climate change. The point that I was trying to talk about, because this is the media show, was about media bias and how the media misrepresents some of the arguments that are going on, which makes it appear to one side that there is this broad-based consensus which doesn't actually exist, and you only have to go to any of the climate change meetings around the world from various organizations, including the UN.
I got to call you on this. We're talking about the consensus on climate change, not about the solutions to how to do it, how to mitigate it. There's all over the map. People have different opinions.
But you're not going to get that.
There's no consensus about that.
But you're not going to get that when there isn't actually open consensus about the causes. You're not going to get that. I mean, look at somebody who is quite left wing, Michael Moore.
We
Michael
can't agree
Moore
on
this documentary.
We can't agree on that either. But the fact that it's happening, we can agree on.
Not everybody agrees on that either, Jim. But that's besides
the point. I agree. That's why I call that the consensus.
Okay, I agree with it. But just because the consensus is correct, or sorry, I'll rephrase that. Just because the consensus exists doesn't mean that the consensus is correct. That would be like saying, well, you know, when James Monroe got like 80% of the popular vote, that everybody who didn't agree with him was wrong.
Consensus of the scientists. Stay on track.
I've been in couples counseling for 30 years, and doing these shows is a lot like couples or group counseling. And speaking of that, I got to go because my wife needs the computer. See you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're all getting ready to leave very shortly. The only thing I was going to say to you, Shaquille, and as just quickly, is that I think where things got pivoted, and this is just my opinion as the one of the few people, and I'm not saying I'm the only one with a journalism background, is that people were asking you, and I think that that's what was lost in the conversation, were asking you to cite, and you did do it later and everything, where that argument came from, because I was even trying to figure out where the hospital was and who the person was, because you mentioned this Vancouver case of somebody being diagnosed with climate change. Now, after you put it in the comment section, then that made sense. It was a factor in the diagnosis, but that's not what was being explained.
It's not relevant to the point. Yeah. Look, I'm trying to make a point, and you guys want to get bogged down in details. But then when you guys try to make a point, and I go, well, okay, well, show me the evidence of that, you can't do it. Right?
I don't agree with your one-sidedness on this. It's not all directed against Shaq, and it's not all.
No, of course it's not. Jim, of course it's. Of course it's
back and forth, and we all do it to each other. I interrupt you, you interrupt me.
That's fine. That's fine, Jim. But when we have certain shows where I'm the only person who, I'm not right wing. I'm just not a progressive leftist, and I'm not a Democrat because I'm not American, so I'm not a Republican or a Democrat.
I know.
So when I come on the show and then have a differing view or a differing opinion, and then there's this attack that happens, or if you don't think it's an attack, that's fine. Yeah. But then when that happens,
I didn't think
I find it fascinating to then when I'm off air have somebody say, "Well, I just want to be educated. I just want to hear differing viewpoints."
He's not here to defend himself.
Frankly, when it comes to differing viewpoints, something that Jacoby said while I was off air was, I think his family history is fascinating. I think this is, but then when I talk about some of the discrimination that has occurred against my family on the shows before, he's burst out laughing like it's the funniest thing he's ever heard.
Well, your dynamic is a different thing, Shaq.
And our audience by suggesting that actually you're just after an education. No, hypocrisy lies very, very strongly on your side of the aisle, as far as I can see. Now, maybe it's the same thing on my side of the aisle. Maybe it is. And you guys are more than welcome to call that out. But to sit there and treat me and other guests the way that we have been treated is pathetic. And I really hope that in 2024, that doesn't continue.
Yeah, I don't see the analysis the same way. Nick is a frequent host. He's very Republican, very much a right.
Well, at the moment, Jim. Pardon? At the moment, he was very vocal about voting for Biden and the Democrats in the last election. It's only been recently that he said he's going to become a Republican again.
Well, let's just say that things can change in far as your affiliation or party. But the fact is he's a unregulated capitalism guy.
Right.
So he's supporting all of your arguments in that way.
Wait. No, hold up a second. But when have I made a very strong right-wing argument? See,
come on, Jack, please play along here. We're talking about the dynamics on the show. All right. So let's not make it personal. That you're
picking on Nick, and
I'm not picking on you. I'm saying that there are Republican viewpoints on this show repeatedly expressed. And Kim doesn't like to be called a Democrat. So let me make my point, Shaq. I wanted to say that there's a balance on the show that I don't think you're recognizing, and you're thinking that you get attacked a lot when I don't see it. I see it sometimes with a back and forth, but I don't see it as like all of us picking on Shaq. Individual topics that can seem that way, and at times that's been true, because we have differences of opinions, but not because you're the far right kind of. Well, I am definitely anti-MAGA. But I grew up with Republicans that were right center. I'm very comfortable with those types of views expressed. I'm very comfortable with people like yourself who describe themselves as fiscally conservative and socially moderate. Very comfortable. That's New England in a nutshell. And so I think that these types of things are exaggerated because you feel like you're only speaking for yourself and no one's supporting you. And I'm sorry you feel that way. And I'll try to support you more in the future. But I don't think that dynamic is driving people away so much as they're not able to communicate their arguments effectively.
Okay, so Jim, let me respond to a couple of things. Firstly, when I was first labeled a right-wing extremist on this network, it was coming up to the election where I said, let's talk about the policies and the effect that they were going to have from what Donald Trump, who was not the president at that time, was coming up to the election, what Donald Trump is proposing, and what Hillary Clinton was proposing, and then coming up to the last election, what Donald Trump is proposing from 2020 on, and what Biden is proposing. And everyone turned around and said, oh, well, Donald Trump's a criminal, he's this and that, America's democracy is going to cease to exist, and blah, blah. I said, yeah, just forget all about all that. Let's just talk about the policies and what the likely effects are going to be. That, because I wasn't prepared to denounce Donald Trump, that all of a sudden made me a right-wing conservative. Now, when you say on this show, where you've got Rick Rosner, who's a Democrat, you who is a Democrat, Mark, who's a Democrat, Jacoby, who's a Democrat, and me, who it's not that I'm not a Democrat. If I was in America, given what you just described, or what you quoted me as described myself as fiscal conservative, social moderate, that could make me a Republican or a Democrat if I was in the United States. Moderate. That could make me either. Okay. Right. But because I'm not actually a Democrat, and the more progressive side of Democrat policy that I don't agree with necessarily gets focused on sometimes. Nobody ever says anything when I pick on the hard right-wing policies of Republicans when I'm giving analysis. But if I say something against the progressive side, all of a sudden I'm like the resident nut job. Now that's fine. I can handle that.
I don't believe that. I don't think that's true.
Well, you may not. You may not agree with that. But
I don't agree with it because I don't agree with a lot of progressive left. I didn't vote for Bernie Sanders.
When you say to me that's not the dynamic that is on this network, I'm telling you, as I've told other people who are involved in this network, that there is a mass exodus of center-right and right-wing guests that are either no longer coming or have not come at all because of that very issue. Now, if you guys don't want to recognize that, that's up to you guys. I don't care. I'm not going to be around as much this year as I have been previously, okay? So I don't really care what you guys do, but I'm telling you that that's what's happening. And
you've been on a lot more than I have.
This thing with Vancouver General Hospital, I know that because it's a hospital that's very dear to my heart.
I don't care about that.
To stop me from saying what I want to say until I gave you the evidence of it.
You can't say this last
Mark,
record.
I have
You've
now
been on these shows a lot longer than I have.
And I acknowledge that you gave me that. I even said that I put up the comment that you gave me. So I even acknowledged that. And the other thing that I would say to you really quickly is that there are I've said this to you before, I'll say it again. There are a number of people that are far lefter than I am and everything that have also not appeared on the show. I don't know why Debbie isn't here, but I know I send her the link every week as well. And it might be some of what Jonathan Lockhart calls the food fight.
If you're referring to Debbie Peterson, I don't think that Debbie is a far lefty at all. She's a Democrat. She's not a far left wing person. It's like Jim. I wouldn't say that Jim's a far left person. A lot of the positions that Jim has are positions that I agree with, right? Or I agree with like 80%, but the other 20% I think is too far or whatever. But that's normal, right? If I agree with everything Jim said, there'd be a problem. Right.
I was just saying that I was just using Debbie as an example, and I'm not saying that she's totally far left. She does have some views that are left. She has some views that are on the right because she's definitely about smaller government and all, which we know can be a very Republican-dominated conversation. But there have been some other guests that have been on, including some that I've invited that refuse to come on because they don't like the nature of the food fight and all of that kind of thing.
That's my whole point, Mark. We shouldn't be having these sorts of food fights, right? Because the issues that are at hand are relevant issues. We can take any issue. Unions, should they exist or should they not? Have they helped or have they hurt? The answer is both. Yes, unions have helped in some situations. Yes, unions have hurt in other situations. There needs to be a balance. Right. And in order to have a balance, you need people from the business community to talk about when unions are asking for something which is going to be too cumbersome for businesses to comply with. Okay. And you need the business community to be reminded when they're going to suggest doing something or changing workers' rights in such a way that workers are going to get a result which is not going to enable them to live a decent life and have reasonable working conditions. There always has to be a balance. What ends up happening, though, is that any criticism of one side versus the other gets shot down. And I don't think that that's healthy because if you want to do that, that's fine. But you can't at the same time as shooting down one argument say that you're trying to be pragmatic and listen to both sides when you clearly aren't doing that. And the evidence of that is the amount of center-right people that are not coming anymore.
No, but your question and everything, or your statement is one, as I just said before, there are some people that are on the left and the right that have left for whatever reasons they choose to leave. I choose to be because of my journalism background. If anybody watches any of the interviews knows that I interview and talk to people, some that I agree with, some that I don't agree with. And half the time, y'all can't tell whether I agree with them or don't agree with them because I'm asking pertinent questions and I'm not trying to bring my own personal bias into the questions because that's the journalism training that I have. And all along those lines, I'm just like, I love to have, and anybody watching the online dinner party knows that I love to have different voices shared and everything, and to provide a platform for those voices to be heard, whether I agree with them or not, because I don't think that that is my job to determine that. It's my job to present the information. I want to say it's my job to present the information, and then other people can make their judgment as to whether they agree with the person or disagree with the person. Now, the other thing I was going to say along those same lines is that there is a group, and this may surprise you, of folks that are considered very conservative. And actually, we had some of them on the network and everything, but they are if you know who Tony Brown is, there's a group of folks that are African-American capitalists, and there are some capitalists that are very Republican-oriented and all along those lines. And I know for a fact that that network voice has been heard because I've heard them on some number of the shows that have been there, whether it's Barbara Smith or a number of others. So there are some folks that are out there that are conservative, even in the African-American community, because there's this whole notion about conservatism, both in the African-American and Latin American communities. And I do know that those voices are heard because they are spoken out there about that, and that's fine. Whether you believe that or not.
No, of course I believe that because I don't think that any racial group is monolithic. So of course, there's going to be conservative black voices, and the majority of blacks that I have met have been conservative and not Democrats. Just so you know, but that's besides the point because most of the blacks that I know are from the southern states, with the exception of California, where I spend the most amount of my time. Now, I've made my point. I'm just saying, in relation to climate change, media bias shapes the argument in such a way that people get an impression of things that may not necessarily be true. And I think that hurts our ability to talk about real solutions to issues that face not just our generation, because we're probably going to die, all of us that are here today, probably going to die before the real repercussions are really fully felt. But there is a big population of young people who I think are getting incorrect information and are not actually able to have real conversations about different solutions to these issues. And a big part of that is not just media bias, but the lobbying that goes on from businesses and industries that have a vested interest in their product, who, frankly, I don't think give two damns about the planet. And unfortunately, the green energy industry is one of those industries where the people that seek to make money out of it oftentimes don't really care about whether there's more or less damage done to the planet. What they care about is the dollars and cents. And I think that's a real shame.
No, I agree with you that it's very much a dollar and cents, and the lobbies are a important issue. We've brought that up on the economics and a number of other shows as well and everything. And it's for this notion of us not being around and everything. I don't know if you didn't get the memo, Shaquille, but me and Jim are planning to be around till we're like 200 or something. So we're going to actually be around to see this and everything along those lines, because we've been trying to find that fountain of youth. I'm looking on the East Coast and Jim's looking on the West Coast. Whoever finds it first will let the other one know. Right, Jim? We got that deal, right?
That's right.
Well,
it's not surprising that people that are associated with good causes have corrupted them for financial gain. You know, this is the part of American history that is not necessarily swept under the rug, but people don't pay enough attention to it. There's always been abuse.
Jim comes from a background of Roman Catholic, I think you said, or Catholic anyway, I think you said before. So, Mark, perhaps more reading of the Old Testament, you two can live to 200 or 500 or 600. Or,
oh, yeah. There was nothing in those days.
Yeah, like I said, but it's also a matter of how they were doing the counting back then, because 1 year might have been several months and all along those lines. So it's also a matter of the counting.
So it might not have just been creation in 7 days. That might have meant something completely different.
Are you guys just trying to upset the Pentecostals that say that actually the truth?
Well, I'm after the Anglicans now.
Hey, Jim, come on. The Anglicanism suits me perfectly, right? This is my political position in the US. I'm not really taking a side. I'm kind of halfway between you both, right? And that's what Anglicanism is. That's the power of British diplomacy right there.
Well,
Irish Catholic, come back to Catholic. Isn't that the same thing as purgatory? You don't go to heaven or hell. You just go to that middle ground and everything, which is a Catholic principle. I do remember that from my university.
Well, purgatory can't be so bad. Jesus spent quite a bit of time there.
Exactly. But on that note, we're going to get on out of here. I'll see hopefully some of y'all on tomorrow and all along those lines. But
we'll be back
tomorrow, and we've got some other guests coming on as well.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.